Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over LTCN BCHG HZEN and ETCG. Let's get it. So we're actually going to cover all of the grayscale trusts in here, but these are the main ones that we cover, so let's go ahead and get it. For those of you guys that don't know, we do hold LTCN, BCHG, ETCG, and we're even considering dropping another $1,000 on HZEN on Monday because of this massive pullback. You can see here LTCN went up, but ETCG and BCHG basically were flat. The only one that had a massive drop was HZEN, so we're actually considering picking this one up. Anyways, so we do hold those. You can go check out our last video on our buy, sells, and dividends for the week. You'll see our positions there if you're curious. But anyways, so LTCN is looking pretty bullish. As you guys can see on the weekly, we did have a slight close. It's very, very hard to see, but we had a slight close above that previous body there on the left. You see that red candle on there on the left with the big wick at the top. We did close slightly above that candle body, so that's very bullish. Although we are not out of this resistance yet, so this can go one of two ways basically. The first scenario, which I would say is less likely at this point, is that we get a pullback. If we get a pullback, the pullback could be, let's actually kind of move this support zone out here a little bit. So the pullback could be as little as all the way down to 2350, and then it just kind of has this little baby pullback and then boom, straight to the upside. That does happen sometimes in trading. Or well, kind of as you guys can see with this red candle here, so we got a little baby dip and then it bounced off the EMAs, basically the bottom of support, and then boom, shot straight up. So that's a good example of what that would look like. Or it could pull all the way back down into this zone between 15 to about 1280 or so. If that did happen, of course, we might actually be buying some more LTCN also. So those are the two possible scenarios. For the bear case, for the bull case, if this thing busts out of here and starts smashing to the upside, might hold a little resistance here at 30, but if it can get past that, this thing could go all the way up to, I would say, $75 a share at first. And then the big resistance is between basically $100 to $135. So this thing could probably do like I'd say a 3 to 5x from this point. We will most likely ultimately be at highs. It's just a matter of when. It doesn't happen overnight, though. It does take some time, as you guys can see here on these candle bodies. It took quite a few weeks for this thing to actually really get to all-time highs. Didn't take that long. It was like 6 weeks or something like that, but it wasn't, a single day. So HZEN. So what's going on here is HZEN kind of did get rejected off of not exactly sure what here. So it looks like a lot of these candle body tops served as resistance. So that's a good note to point out there, roughly about that 1050 level. So we got rejection there, closed back into the support zone. So this is a perfect buy signal at this point, in my opinion. Could it go lower? Yeah, sure it could. But generally when price action breaks out of a resistance zone, it will come back and retest it, and more often than not, it will just shoot straight up. There are lesser cases when it is a fake out and it busts out of there, and then it just comes straight back down to that support zone below what would be resistance at this point right here. But the probability, in my opinion, is in the favor of the bulls. So current support between $6.90 and $8, and resistance between $11.30 and $12.50. We'll just do the measured move on this. So if you guys were to go ahead and get in now, you'd be looking at immediately roughly about 46 to 63% move on HZEN. BCHG, this one has pulled back out of resistance. Not really surprising because that's where this control bar is here. As you guys can see, this massive dump, just huge. I mean, this thing is ridiculous. You guys can see just how aggressive these sell-offs or buys can be. That is a 65% weekly candle to the downside. So once we get past that, we'll obviously be heading up pretty quick to this next zone up here. So As of right now, the still current support zone is between 675 to 760. Resistance is 1020 to 1250. One of two scenarios could play out here. We could reject, go back down to support here, or pop out of here and head up to the next resistance. If that happens, the next resistance is between $18 to $20. Let's just say you got in here and it dropped. You'd be looking at about a 30% decrease. Of course, you could buy more on the dip. That's entirely up to you. But if it pops up here, it's about 72 to about 92% gain. So ETH Classic, this one still hasn't had a major breakout yet. It did break out of this support zone here, but we haven't had a breakout of this big resistance zone here. So a little bit of a pullback. We bought some on the dip, as you guys know, but current support is 13 to 1585. Current resistance 1780 to about $20. And above and beyond that, I would say that the next possible resistance is going to be somewhere between, I'd say, about $23.50 to almost $30. Pretty big move there. So if you were just to get into the zone now, between basically here and the next resistance, about 20 to 37%, and then to get up to the resistance above that, going to be about 54 to roughly about 105%. So GXLM, actually want to get rid of this Fibonacci. Forgot that I left this on here. So it's looking pretty bullish. We got to close above this massive green candle here. As you can see, this is a nether control bar. So we did get a close above it. That's a very good sign. We have not closed out of resistance yet, so that is still an issue, but I would say this thing is likely to break out. So where could it be heading next? Pretty much anywhere between this candle top here to this wick. So let's actually go ahead and draw in that current trajectory of a potential resistance zone here. We'll kind of, I don't know what I don't know what I'm doing right now. So yeah, there we go. You can see it's a much bigger resistance zone. So we'll measure it. We'll just assume that this thing does pop out of here. It seems likely based on the price action that it will. So the move would be roughly about 34 to 71%. Current support or resistance, I would say this is probably going to flip to support, is 52 to 58, and resistance between 74 to about $95 or so. ETH still looking very bullish. It's getting a pullback. There's a possibility still for a cup and handle here, but we'll just have to wait and see. It did not pull back at the start of this cup, so that's a signal that potentially it may not play out as a cup and handle. But current support between 25.30 to 29, resistance between 40.80 to about 47.50. As you guys can see, it pulled back, kind of expecting this thing to bounce at this point. But it does kind of depend, of course, on what Ethereum does. So the measured move up would be roughly about 37.5 to about 60% on that one. Zcash, interestingly, was flat on the day. I find that to be quite curious. Pretty much everything else was up and down, but Zcash was flat. That's really strange. So anyways, we got an indecision candle here. It doesn't know if it wants to go up or down yet. So as of right now, this is still resistance between 740 and 810, and support is still between 440 to 505. So assuming it comes back down into support, which is possible, the measured move would be roughly around 56 to 70%. GSOL, wow. So this thing did not waste any time going straight back up. So whoever bought the dip here on this huge pullback into support, well, congratulations. We did call that one, so yay us, right? Anyways, if you managed to get in there, you'd be looking at roughly about 119 to, well, if you managed to somehow sell the top, roughly about 200%. So resistance still roughly about 580. That support is still between 175 to roughly about $200. Mana, this is a really ugly looking candle. I am not really going to say that this is a bearish candle. I would say there's a possibility that Mana could actually go even higher. The reason being is, generally speaking, if this was going to be a bearish candle, the candle body needs to be at least bigger than half of the previous candle, and it's not bigger than that. Okay, the wick goes down there to more than 50% of the green candle, but the body itself does not, so that does not convince me that this is bearish. However, I'm still going to hold that this support zone down here is still relevant, so it's between 1740 to about 2025, and the top, as you guys can see here, is 70 bucks. So if it does pull back, if I'm wrong about this and it does pull back into support, the measured move could be as great as 265%. So GBAT, this one is looking very, very bullish. I mean, nice big green candle, a lot of selling pressure at the top. My guess is probably profit takers, people taking profit on this position, and it's probably going to head higher, would be my guess. Of course, it looks overextended on the weekly, but if we go down to something like the 15-minute chart, you can see it doesn't look anything like the weekly chart. It just looks like a typical uptrend. This is one of the reasons why we look at the higher time frames, to kind of give you guys a when in doubt, zoom out perspective. So on the 15-minute, it looks normal, but on here, you're like, yikes, this thing is really overextended. The red EMA is down there at supports. So I would still say at this point that support would be probably somewhere at the top of these candles, so about $9.50 a share. And of course, the peak is at just over 32 bucks. So if it pulls back there and you happen to get the measured move up, you're looking at about 225%. GXLM, this one pulled back. Or sorry, G-Link, this one pulled back. I'm not really surprised, to be honest. I was kind of expecting it because it's getting massively, massively overextended. So just to give you guys an idea of how big that drop was, the entire candle was about 50%. From the top to the close was about 46%, so huge move. Considering it's come down this much, I would say support is probably where it's headed, so somewhere between 67 to about 85 bucks, and the top is 220 bucks. So if you manage to get in roughly about halfway in that zone, you'd be looking at, I'd say that's probably roughly around 190%. PhilG, we told you guys we thought this one was massively overextended, and turns out it is. So from the top in the fullness of the candle, roughly about 47.5% and 43.6% on the close. I would say this is still likely to at least come back and touch the yellow EMA. There's no real clear bottom here, except I would say roughly about support would be roughly around $68, maybe $69, somewhere in there. So it could be potentially another 28 to 69% drop. And keep in mind, Filecoin itself, which we do hold, has not really started taking off yet. So assuming you got in at the yellow EMA, about 149% move. Now GLIV, this is the last one. We'll take this Fibonacci off real quick. So massive indecision candle, clearly sellers taking profit at the top and buyers buying the dip at the EMAs. We're not the only traders that use EMAs. They're actually very common with day traders and swing traders. Some people do SMAs, some people do EMAs. We actually use both, but for different reasons. So I would say it's likely to come back to the EMAs, maybe even test the top of this triangle here at roughly around 22 bucks. Let's just assume you get in at the yellow EMA, which is at $30, and you hold to the top. It's about 162% on that move. So one more thing I want to cover with you guys before we close out this video. Let's take a look at the Fibonacci's on the holdings that we currently have. We did go over a video on this. You guys are welcome to reference it anytime you like. That's the reason why we put that note in that video. But we're going to do a macro picture Fibonacci retracement here to show potentially just how high, roughly about how high these things could go. So 1.618 on LTCN is $830, 2.618 $1325, 3.618 would be $1825, and the top would be almost $2,200 on the LTCN. So just to give you guys an idea, let's just say, well, let's actually let's retrace this real quick. Yeah, it's close enough. Okay, so let's just say it does go to the 3.618 at $18.25 per share. And it could happen or it could not happen. We don't know yet. Okay. So from the current price, we'll just say current price 25.3, you'd be looking at nearly a 72x on your money. Okay. If we just got a 72x on this thing, of course, our current cost is way lower than that. You can obviously see how massive the return would be. So again, 1825. If we divide that by divide our cost basis by that, I'm sure it's not exactly 1325, but it's somewhere in there. So you guys can see it'd be a massive 137x, which hopefully it does do that. That would be fantastic. So we'll do 137 times 5,000. Pretty huge move, as you guys can see. So we'll do also the same thing here with HZEN. So I'm going to use the top of the wick there, all the way basically down to the bottom. You can see some of the massive levels here. So first level 48, second level potentially $80, third level 107, and fourth level 125. So BCHG, we only showed you guys I believe the first two Fibonacci's on BCHG. Oh no, never mind. We showed you all of them. So Fib 1, roughly around $97. Fib 2, 158. Fib 3, roughly about 216, 217. Top Fib, $250. And with the ETH Classic, this one's also kind of a bit weird, like HZEN, because of that massive wick at the top, but we'll just measure it, assuming that that is actually accurate. So ETCG, first level, $154, second level, $250, third level, $340, and fourth level, nearly $400. So it's a massive move even from this point. If it did get to $400, I mean, what is that, like a 25x from the current price? It's just insane. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see y'all later. Peace.